Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet Nashta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttam Shlokir Bhaktir Bhavatir Nashtaki. Hare Krishna. So, everyone has a copy of the Bhagavad-Gita? Okay, good. So, today we're discussing from chapter 8 of Srimad Bhagavad-Gita. Chapter 8 is called Attaining the Supreme, or Bhagavad Prapti. And the text we are discussing today is text 9. So I'll read, then we can repeat after me. Kavim Puranam Anushashitaram Anor Aniyamsam Anusmaredhaya Sarvasya Dhataram Achintya Rupam Aditya Varnam Tamasaha Parastat. Word to word and translation and purport by His Divine Grace Abhay Charanarvind Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So please repeat after me, word to word. Kavim, the one who knows everything. Puranam, the oldest. Anushashitaram, the controller. Anho, then the atom. Anayamsam, smaller. Anusmret, always thinks of. Yaha, one who. Sarvasya, of everything. Dhataram, the maintainer. Achintya, inconceivable. Rupam, whose form. Aditya Varnam, luminous like the sun. Tamasaha, to darkness. Parastat, transcendental. Translation. One should meditate upon the Supreme Person as the one who knows everything. As He is the oldest, who is the controller, who is smaller than the smallest, who is the maintainer of everything, who is beyond all material conception, who is inconceivable, and who is always a person. He is luminous like the sun, and He is transcendental, beyond this material nature. Please repeat after me. One should meditate upon the Supreme Person as the one who knows everything. He who is the oldest, who is the controller, who is smaller than the smallest, who is the maintainer of everything, who is beyond all material conception, who is inconceivable, and who is always a person. He is luminous like the sun, and He is transcendental beyond this material nature. Purport. The process of thinking of the Supreme is mentioned in this verse. The foremost point is that He is not impersonal or void. One cannot meditate on something impersonal or void. That is very difficult. The process of thinking of Krishna, however, is very easy and is factually stated herein. First of all, the Lord is Purusha, a person. We think of the person Ram and person Krishna. And whether one thinks of Ram or Krishna, or of Krishna, what he is like is described in this verse of Bhagavad-Gita. The Lord is Kavi, that is, He knows the past, present, and future, and therefore knows everything. He is the oldest personality because He is the origin of everything. Everything is born out of Him. He is also the supreme controller of the universe, and He is the maintainer and instructor of humanity. He is smaller than the smallest. The living entity is 1/10,000th part of the tip of a hair, but the Lord is so inconceivably small that He enters into the heart of this particle. Therefore, He is called the smaller than the smallest. As the Supreme, He can enter into the atom and into the heart of smallest and control him as the Supersoul. Although so small, He is still all-pervading and is maintaining everything. By Him, all these planetary systems are sustained. We often wonder how these big planets are floating in the air. It is stated here that the Supreme Lord, by His inconceivable energy, is sustaining all these big planets and systems of galaxies. The word achintya, inconceivable, is very significant in this connection. God's energy is beyond our conception, beyond our thinking jurisdiction, and is therefore called inconceivable, achintya. Who can argue this point? He pervades this material world and yet is beyond it. We cannot comprehend even this material world, which is insignificant compared to the spiritual world. So how can we comprehend what is beyond? Achintya means that which is beyond this material world, that which our argument, logic, and philosophical speculation cannot touch, that which is inconceivable. Therefore, intelligent persons, avoiding useless argument and speculation, should accept what is stated in scriptures like the Vedas, Bhagavad-Gita, and Srimad Bhagavatam, and follow the principles set down. This will lead one to understanding. You can all repeat after me. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayham Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guruho Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijan Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamsha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhave Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrindam Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Namam Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prashthai Bhutale, Srimate Bhakti Charu Swami Nitya Namne, Snigdha Cheta Suparaneta Vagaminam Chirsaplatam, Prabhupada Gata Praname Bhakti Charupadam, Namam Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prashthai Bhutale, Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitya Namne, Namaste Saraswati Deve, Gauravani Paracharane, Nirvishesha Shunyamadi, Paschatya Desha Taranam. Kavim Puranam, Anushashitaram, Anor Aniyamsam, Anusmaredhya, Sarvasya Dhataram Achinta Rupam, Aditya Varunam, Tamasa Parastat. One should meditate upon the Supreme Person as one who knows everything. He who is the oldest, who is the controller, who is smaller than the smallest, who is maintainer of everything, who is beyond all material conception. who is inconceivable and who is always a person. He is luminous like the sun and is transcendental beyond this material nature. Hare Krishna to. So, I was going to say in Hindi. So, we discussing chapter 8. Chapter 8 is entitled Attaining the Supreme. And in this chapter, Lord Krishna, actually this section of Bhagavad-Gita, this section, the middle section of the Bhagavad-Gita, chapter 7 to chapter 12, Lord Krishna speaks about attaining Him through the process of bhakti. The first section, chapter 1 to chapter 6, Lord Krishna tells us how to attain Him through the process of karma yoga. And the last 6 chapters, 13 to 18, Lord Krishna tells us how to attain Him, Krishna, through the process of jnana yoga. And this particular chapter is called Attaining the Supreme. And here Lord Krishna is telling how, giving us indications, not indications, clear instructions as how one can attain Lord Krishna. And Prabhupada points it out, the first line of his purport, it says, the process of thinking of the Supreme is mentioned in this verse. So it's thinking of Krishna, it's remembering Krishna. Remembering Krishna, His pastimes, His leelas, His guna, His abode, His devotees, but especially Himself. So the more one remembers, Prabhupada says in previous purports, the more one remembers Krishna, the more easier it gets. It's easier for all of us, or anyone who remembers Him, it's easier for that individual to attain Krishna at the end of one's life. Because, as the Bhagavatam says, the goal of life is Anta Narayana Smriti. The real test of life. We all have tests in life, in all our lives, some small tests, some hurdles, but some personal tests, some tests we have to pass through, whether it's school, college, in a family, in a social gathering, or test of a country. So all of us are going through different tests in our life. The final test of the life is at the end of one's life, at the end of one's time. One leaves this world. And it's, Prabhupada says, sure as death. One has to go. No one is, there's no exception where there won't be any change of body. There won't be any death. There's no exception. Even though the modern science is trying very hard to delay death. What is that? I forgot the technical process by which they freeze the bodies in America. Huh? Cloning? No, not cloning. Cloning is replication of the same. Cloning happening all the time, but especially in animal kingdom that is happening. Cloning of humans is illegal. I think somebody has tried illegally, but animals they've tried. The first cloning in the world was, I think, of a goat or a sheep, I don't remember. Sheep, right? In Scotland. All those 30, 40 years ago, you remember then. Yeah, that is happening. But I don't think there is any cloning of humans legally. They must have tried illegally, I'm sure, because the technology, so-called technology is there. But there's another, they delay, cryogenics is called. Cryogenics is where they actually freeze. This cryogenic concept in some science fiction movies, I don't know if you ever watch science fiction movies, is there when they actually freeze that individual, whether in water or in ice, and that individual goes to sleep and wakes up 50 years later, 100 years later, as he is. So they have that. That's a science fiction, but in practice, in America, there are a couple of firms, companies. They have this. They claim they will freeze that individual as they are, and later, whenever that individual says, wake me up in 50 years' time or 100 years' time, and they will wake that individual up. But whether it's successful or not, they haven't tried it out. I mean, they're frozen people. They haven't woken them up yet, as far as I know. But can you imagine, if the electricity, especially in India, if there's electric failure, what will happen to the individual? But maybe not in the West. But everyone has to go. There's no exception. So the final test of all of us is at the end of our lives. How we will remember Krishna at the end of Anta Narayana Smriti. And based on that, our next destination, our future destination is certain. And that to remember Krishna at the end, one must practice. One has to practice, as we all know very clearly. What we're discussing, we all know it. We all know the philosophy, we all read about it, we heard many classes. We're just reminding ourselves. It's good to remind ourselves. Good to give that push. We all need it from time to time. So, we all need to remember Krishna through our lives, through our service, through our working, our day-to-day living. We have to somehow or the other make arrangements that we remember Krishna all the time. Obviously, there are many hurdles in remembering Krishna, and we can, depending on time, we can discuss that at the end of the class or towards the end of the class. The hurdles of remembering Krishna. But this chapter actually begins with, in terms of remembering, Lord Krishna begins his remembering him at the time of death. Text 5 and 6. Antakale cha mamaev yum smaranam ukta kalevaram iha paryati samadbhavam yati nasatra shamshaya. And whoever at the end of his life quits his body remembering me, alone at once attains my nature, Krishna says. Of this, no doubt. And then he says, text 6, yam yam vapi smaranam bhavam tajantyante kalevaram tam eveti konteya sadatad bhava bhavita. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, O Sanakanti, that state he will attain without fail. And then, I'll come back to that in a minute. And then, text 7, Lord Krishna tells Arjuna, tells all of us how to balance life. Because not all of us, well, in ISKCON now we are, but general people, those who are not in ISKCON, they have their lives to lead, whether they are businessmen, whether they're family members, or whether they're students, or whatever normal worldly life they may have. So the question comes, how do I get time to remember you? How do I get time to do my sadhana? How do I remember to remember Krishna? So Krishna says, Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mam anusmara yuddhacha maya arpito manor buddhir mam evashyasya asamshayam. He's telling Arjuna, therefore you should always think of me in the form of Krishna and at the same time carry out your prescribed duties. So here Krishna is giving balance. Whatever you're doing, whatever swadharma or one's own duty one has, whether it's a Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra or a Brahmana or whatever ashram one may be, whatever one is doing, one should have one performs one's duty at the same time, one remembers Krishna at the same time. So a very balanced approach Krishna is saying. And how does that happen? Text 8, Abhyas yoga yuktena chetasa na anya gamina paramam purusham divyam yati parthanu chintayam. He says, he who meditates on me as a Supreme Personality Godhead, his mind constantly engaged in remembering me, abhyas, undeviated from the path, he, O Partha, is sure to reach me. This word abhyas is very important because we see in chapter 6, text 34, Arjuna refuses he expresses inability to practice Ashtanga Yoga. Because Krishna has, in this chapter 6 earlier, had recommended to Arjuna the process of Ashtanga Yoga to control his mind. But Arjuna says, Chanchalam hi manha Krishna paramathi balvadradam tasyaham nigraham manya vayuriva sadushkatam. He says, mind is so turbulent, so strong, so obstinate, I cannot control it. He said, it's easier for me, Arjuna says, to control the direction or the force of the wind than to control the force of the mind. Yes, in text 36, Lord Krishna says, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha, Asamsham hi mahabhavo, mano dunigraham chalam. Yes, Arjuna, it is very difficult to control the mind. 635. But he says, Abhyasena tu kuntya vairagya cha grihiyate. You see, abhyas, practice, constant, there's a saying in English, constant practice makes perfect. The more one practices that one particular path or one particular aspect, then that one becomes more and more apt, and then one becomes perfect in that process. So here, text 8, he's saying, Abhyas Yog Yuktena. One has to remember. And text 5 and 6, how to remember Krishna at the time of death. Text 7, how to remember Krishna in this life while performing one's duty. And text 8, remembering is done by practice. Text 9 is how to remember Krishna from the point of view of remembering him as a super soul, as Paramatma. And then text 10, 11 and 12 and 13, Krishna will talk about his omniscient nature, his all-pervasive nature. And text 14 is how to remember him in pure devotional service. Shuddha Bhakti. There is this text, chapter 7 to chapter 12 are devotional service or bhakti-yoga. But bhakti-yoga is also divided into karma mishra bhakti, jnana mishra bhakti, yoga mishra bhakti. Just like you have a karma yoga, jnana yoga, ashtanga yoga, bhakti yoga. So bhakti is mixed. You can have a pure bhakti, pure devotional service, or one can have a mixed devotional service, mixed bhakti. So these text 9 to 13 are describing, Lord Krishna is describing yoga mishra bhakti, ashtanga yoga mishra bhakti. The idea is to the super soul. Because Arjuna, you remember chapter 6, he refused to perform that Ashtanga Yoga. But later on, Arjuna thought, yes, Krishna is telling me to do it. Abhyasena tu kontya vairagya cha grihite. Do it by constant practice. So Arjuna thought, okay, I'll try it. Krishna is telling me, I will definitely try it. Here Krishna comes back to chapter 6 to Ashtanga Yoga, but a level higher. Chapter 6 is pure Ashtanga Yoga. Chapter 8 is Ashtanga Yoga mixed with Bhakti Yoga. So Krishna is bringing slowly Arjuna from a lowest level to a highest level. And in this chapter 9, text 9, which we're going to discuss now in a bit more detail, here Krishna is telling us how to remember him from as a super soul. He's all pervasive everywhere. So we just quickly go through, and Krishna mentions 8 different qualities of himself. 8 different qualities by which one can remember him. But coming back, I just wanted to check one point on text 5 and text 6, remembering Krishna at the end of one's life. It's not easy. There's no doubt about that. But if we remember, and if you try to remember through these points, these eight qualities, as Krishna is mentioning, if we try to practice it, and if we sincerely practice remembering. The word is sincere. We may be very capable. We may remember so many things in life. We may be capable of doing wonderful feats, achievements in life. But if one is not sincere in one's practice, then even though one may be capable, then that remembrance may not come. So it's a sincerity aspect, very important. I know some individuals who've been, at least one or two individuals who said that they've been in ISKCON doing the sadhana for many, many years, 20, 30 years. They're all very sincere, no doubt. But sometimes even being sincere, unless we have the mercy of Krishna, then we can't remember him. So two things are necessary, being sincere and having mercy of Krishna. You see, it's like the Leela of Yashoda tying Kanhaiya, mother, Kahana, 2 inches short. One is practice with sincerity, and the other one is mercy. I know one devotee told me once that he's been in ISKCON for so many years, many 20, 30 years, chanting, very strict in his sadhana. He's very sincere. But once he was in Mayapur, the group of devotees went to the Ganga. They were all, they wanted to have a dip. So they went on a boat and he dived. He dived into the Ganga. Unfortunately, his head got stuck in the mud. It was shallow. They thought it was deep area. The area was shallow, and his head got stuck. He was stuck. He didn't know what to do. And luckily, a few other devotees noticed he was missing, and they came and grabbed him and saved him. But he later on, he told us, he said, that few seconds or 30 or whatever seconds he was, the last thing he remembered was Krishna. Last thing he remembered was Krishna. He did not remember Krishna at all. He was struggling to live, struggling to survive. You see? Yes, even though the sincerity is there, unless Krishna wants you to remember his mercy is there. So God help us. Krishna help us, as they're saying. So okay, coming back to this text 9. Prabhupada makes, as always, his purports are so deep and so packed with the philosophy. And first of all, he makes a point, is that the foremost point in this text is that Krishna is not impersonal. He is a person. He is a person like you and me. It's easy for us to understand. We're in ISKCON, we know the philosophy. But those who are not in ISKCON, they don't practice, even they may practice bhakti-yoga, but they may not practice the pure bhakti-yoga as taught by the 4 Vaishnava Sampradayas. Specifically Madhava Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. So for most people in this world, besides, I'm saying ISKCON or other bona fide sampradayas, I would say 99.99% of the population, they do not believe that Krishna or God is a person. They do not believe that. And you have to remember, Prabhupada is writing this in the early days, one of the first books is brought out. For us now we understand, when we read, oh yes, of course he's a person. But when devotees join ISKCON, or even now some new devotee comes to ISKCON, they don't understand that God is a person. For them to realize and be convinced to that, yes, God is a person, is a huge obstacle in their life. A big struggle for devotees, even though you may be preaching to that individual. But when you go deep down, I teach disciple course, ISKCON disciple course, and ISKCON disciple course is supposed to be for those devotees who've been in ISKCON for at least 1.5 years. So they know the philosophy, they know, Krishna as a person, and some devotees come who are initiated, they are in ISKCON for 10, 20, 30, 20 years, 5 years. But when I touch this particular point, who's God, and is God a sagun or nirgun? Is he person, or is he personal or impersonal? Even though some of them, being in ISKCON, initiated for many years, they still find it hard to digest. God is a person. You see, I have to, normally in a disciple course, I have to spend one day, 2-3 hours extra, just to teach them the basics of philosophy, even though they're initiated. And even though they initiated this particular point, you'll be surprised how many are not still convinced that Krishna is a person, like we are all persons. He's personality like me and you, but he's unlike me and you. He's a supreme person. He is a Vibhu Atma and we are Anu Atma. We are minute persons. Mameva Vamsho Jiva Loka Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. Krishna says, 15:7 of Bhagavad-Gita, everyone is my part. We are all part and parcel of Krishna. Now, if even in other religions, actually in modern Hinduism, modern Sanatana Dharma, the Indian thought process, religious thought process, you will find over 95%, even more, I think, they're impersonal. And they do not believe that God is a person. Because it's heavily influenced by Nirvisheshvad and Mayavad. As Prabhupada's pranam mantra, Nirvishesha Shunyavadi. And we find that very much so. And you can imagine the rest of the traditions of the world, 100% impersonal. Although in Christianity it says man is made in the image of God, but that image ultimately is impersonal. Or that image, anyway, I don't want to go in Christianity, but there are glimpses or indications in other traditions that God is a person as well, but it's kind of very little. Whereas in Vaishnava tradition and in Vedic tradition, God is a person is the foremost point, Prabhupada says. Unless and until we understand that God is a person, how can one meditate upon him? That's what Prabhupada is saying. One cannot meditate on something impersonal or void. It's very difficult to meditate on him. We do find that certain religious meditate, but what are they meditating on? I don't understand. They either meditate on the light or yeah, they meditate on many things. Very difficult to understand what are they actually meditating on. Sometimes we find, and Prabhupada used to say that, sometimes we see a lot of people coming into the temple, that when they come in front of the deities, they close their eye and start meditating. What are they meditating on? Prabhupada used to say, why you close your eye when you're in front of the deity? That's your meditation object. Why you close your eyes? You see? So what are they actually meditating on? We'll have to find out. So it's very difficult, Prabhupada says. The process of thinking of Krishna, however, is very easy, Prabhupada points it out, and factually stated herein. And these are the 8 different points. Krishna is mentioning who he is. He's Kavi. First of all, he's Kavim, the one who knows everything. See, Krishna, as in the 726, Krishna points it out, one of his wonderful qualities, that Krishna knows the past, present, and future. He knows practically everything in this world. Whatever is gone, whatever is to come, and whatever is happening now. Vedaham samtitani vartamani charjuna bhavishyani cha bhutani mam tu veda na kaschana. 726. O Arjun, as a Supreme Personality of Godhead, I know everything that has happened in the past, all that is happening in the present, and all things are yet to come. I also know all living entities, but no one knows me, Krishna says. See, Krishna, one thinks, one normally, one of the qualities, I wouldn't say qualities, one can say, one of the disqualifications, yes, one of the disqualifications everyone has, especially in this world, is that they think everyone else is a fool. I am the only one who knows everything. Everyone is a fool. I can do so many things in front of you, and I think you don't know what I'm doing. I can fool you. Bevkuf banana, Hindi mein bolte na. Sab bevkuf banana, dhoka is cheating. People cheat. But we don't realize everyone is not a fool. Everyone has intelligence. You can. Who said that? I think one of the American presidents, Lincoln or early ones, he said, you can fool some of the people some of the time. You can fool most of the people most of the time, but you cannot fool all the people all the time. You see? So we think we can fool others. And then we think we can fool Krishna, God also. Because he doesn't know anything. Only I know. But they don't realize Krishna is here in our heart. He knows us more than we know ourselves. He knows our thought processes. He knows what we're thinking, what our ambitions are, what our scheming and planning is to cheat others. He knows everything. He also knows our sincerity to do good. He knows the working of our minds. He knows everything. We can fool others, we cannot fool God. We cannot fool Krishna. Cannot. That's why he is known as Kavim. He knows everything. Just not now, but all three phases of time. Past, present and future. So if one really understands that, and if one really knows, if one really believes in the process of action and reaction, karma and karma phal, for every action there's equal and opposite reaction. If one really believes in that, then one should really think what we're doing, how we're doing, what action we're taking. Are we keeping quiet? Are we doing something wrong? Under pressure, under obligation, under fear? Or are we cheating others? Are we sincere? Are we honest with ourselves? Because Krishna knows. You can fool others, I can fool myself, but we cannot fool Krishna. He knows everything. So if you really have understood the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, we should be very careful at every step. Because we'll be fooling ourselves while practicing Krishna consciousness, and we're getting into this politics, we're getting into this cheating mentality, we're getting into thinking that everyone knows nothing. That is the biggest mistake we're making in our lives. But I can fool all of you in this world, in this class. But I cannot fool Krishna. He knows everything. And we will suffer. Even though one may think I'm practicing devotional service, I'll be okay. Actually, the seventh offense, to commit sinful activities on the strength of the holy name. Knowingly we do this, we get bigger reaction. Krishna knows everything. He is Kavim. So we cannot fool him. We have to be careful. Second is Puranam. He is the oldest. He is because Everything has emanated from him. Everything we see in this world, whether a spiritual world or material world, everything has, he's the origin of everything. Sarva Karana Karanam. He's the oldest, yet he's the youngest. In Christianity, you have the God as an old man, with a beard. He's old. At least they have a picture, they have some concept, but other religions don't. Well, as soon as you talk about God having a form, they think you're blaspheming and they shoot you. You see? So in Christianity, God is an old man, but no. Krishna as a supreme person, he's the youngest. Prabhupada says he never gets old beyond age of 20, 24. That's only when he is as Vasudeva Krishna. But when he's Nandan Krishna is never he's never more than 16 years old. That's his original personality. So he's Nav Yovanam Cha. He's oldest, but that's a contradiction. But this is Achintya. There's another quality of him. He is Achintya Rupam. His Rup, he has a form, but he's Achintya Rupam. Inconceivable. I'm just skipping one or two, looking at the time. He's Achintya, he's inconceivable. One cannot understand how this world is working. Prabhupada does say that in the purport, we often wonder how these big planets are floating in the air. It is stated here that Supreme Lord, by his inconceivable energy is sustaining all these big planets and systems of galaxies. Do you know, according to modern science, modern science, modern astronomy and the Bhagavatam differ in terms of number of galaxies, of stars, and the size of the universe, they differ. But modern science, modern astronomy, do you know how many galaxies there are? And they say there's observable universe and there's unobservable universe. What they can see and what they can't see. What they can see is small portion compared to what they can't see. So what they can see in there, their estimate 2 trillion galaxies. 2 trillion. Trillion is million, isn't it? I think so, yeah. Million is trillion. Yeah. So 2 trillion galaxies. And in each galaxies, there are hundreds and thousands, hundreds of thousands of stars and planets. And the galaxy we're in is called the Milky Way galaxy. It's one of the smallest galaxies. And this galaxy they can't understand. Forget galaxy, they can't understand how this planet Earth is working. So Prabhupada says, we cannot comprehend even this material world, which is insignificant compared to the spiritual world. The material world, we know, Prabhupada has given an analogy, is the bag of mustard seed, and in those unlimited mustard seeds, as one mustard seed is compared to the material world. Ek pad vibhuti, or 25% of the whole creation, or ek pad, is material world. 3 pad, or 3/4, is a spiritual world. So this material world is insignificant. Prabhupada says we can't even understand this insignificant. And this particular planetary system we live is one of those mustard seeds in the creation of this material world. How can we understand what is beyond this? How can science or modern scholars or modern scientists, modern astronomers can understand which is something beyond them? And Prabhupada very very clearly points out in the introduction of the Bhagavad-Gita that all of us have 4 defects. One is we always illusioned. Second is we have imperfect senses. Third is tendency to cheat. Fourth is we make mistakes. And out of the 4, the 4th one, tendency to cheat, is paramount. Is the biggest We want to cheat. That's coming back to the fooling people. We want to cheat others. We think everyone is a fool. And every step, Prabhupada said this world is full of cheaters and the cheated. Whether in a spiritual organization or outside spiritual organization. In fact, sometimes you find more cheaters in a spiritual organization. Banaras ke thug, you heard of that, right? More cheaters inside. Because it's easy to cheat while you're in. Because at least outside people are aware, more cautious. But when they come in a spiritual organization, they think this, everything should be okay. They're suspecting, unsuspecting I should say. So get cheated easily. So Krishna's achintya is very difficult to understand, and also that's why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu combined the four principles, two principles each, of the four Vaishnava Sampradayas, and formed his achintya, bheda and abheda tattva philosophy. The four Vaishnava philosophies, so 2 points each, is achintya, is different and non-different at the same time. How can be something different and non-different? Because it's achintya, it's inconceivable. Sometimes it's easy to use this word. If you can't answer anything, we say it's achintya. It's inconceivable, so we don't understand. So let's not talk about it. It can be used that way also. Other point, he is anayor. I think this is only fourth point we don't have so much time. Anayor, that means he's smaller than the smallest. Siddhis, Ashta Siddhis, after performing Ashtanga Yoga from the point of Nishtha, after Nishtha, I'm getting it wrong. After Yam, Niyam, Pranam, Asan, Pratyahara, after Pratyahara, the Siddhis starts to come. You don't get those Siddhis in the first 5 stages. From the 6th and 7th practice, the Siddhis starts to come. And when you reach the 8th Ashtanga Samadhi, then you get a lot of Siddhis. So, one of the Siddhis, the Ash Siddhis, Anima, Mahima, Laghima, Prapti, Ishitva, Prakamaya, Kama, Vashita, like that, 8 of them. The first one is Anima. Anima, that means smaller than the smallest. We see that in Ramayana, when Hanuman left for Lanka from south, from Rameshwaram to Lanka, when he flew, in between he is accosted by that she-demon. What was her name? Singika. Yeah. So, sorry, I forget the name. You're right. When he had, the condition was, he had to enter her mouth. And if he could enter her mouth and come out, then she will let go. So she won't block his path. And we see he becomes, in fact, Hanuman is Ash Siddhi no Nidhi Data. You see, he has all these Ash Siddhis. In fact, all the sadhus who are perfected them, they have Ash Siddhis. Prabhupada had Siddhis. I don't know if you heard of that Leela. He doesn't exhibit it. In 1977, I heard this in a class long time ago, and some devotees have verified that, confirmed that. I think that's the last point we make. We only touched half of the class I wanted to say. I'll just finish with this. Prabhupada Glorification. Prabhupada had all the siddhis. We say, there's no place for Ashtanga Yoga. There isn't. But that does not mean Nitya Siddhas don't have these Ashta Siddhis. They do. But they may not exhibit it. In 1977, Kumbh Mela, there was a ISKCON Pandal like there is all the time. And in Prayag, this was Prayag, there was a khichdi distribution. Every day, morning and evening, is outside ISKCON temple, ISKCON Pandal, like they happen now. The khichdi was distributed. So, and the devotees who were serving, there was a big queue. of local sadhus, some sadhus with long beards, some, as we see the sadhus in Kumbh Mela, from all walks of life. They come from all over India, from the Himalayas, from the jungles, from different mutts. They're all shapes and sizes. Some are wearing hardly anything. Some are, with long beards, etc. We know the scene. So they were serving prasad, so the khichdi, they ran out. So there was one sadhu who was he was just about to be served, but 2 or 3 places behind. He was almost 2 or 3 places behind from the front person on the line, and the khichdi ran out. And this sadhu was young, long beard, with a big jatais, big long hair, and he was very stern, very serious person. So the devotees said, Baba, everything's finished, please come in the evening now, at this time. Everyone went, but he stood still. He stood still. He wouldn't go. Every devotees were clearing up, they cleared everything up, and he was still there. So they asked him, please go, we have to close this area, but he wouldn't move. In Hindi, there was an Indian devotee, he said, I want to see your Mahant, Prabhupada. Prabhupada was there. They said, no, Baba, you can't, he's resting, this and that. He wouldn't listen. And immediately, while they were talking to him, he just shot up. Very quickly, he went towards the tent, marked the pandal where Prabhupada's staying. He knew apparently where he was staying. And devotees ran after him, trying to stop him. Before that, when he was standing in the queue, when everyone gone, the devotees were clearing up, one devotee, after telling him to leave, he wouldn't leave, so he tried to push him along, As soon as he touched him, he felt an electric current in his body. So then the devotees told him, be careful, these are sadhus, they're great siddhis, siddha yogis, they don't know you don't know who you're dealing with. So then he came up, I want to see your Mahant. Then he said, no, you can't see him, he's resting, this and that. And suddenly he just ran at a great speed towards the pandal. And devotees went after him, they wouldn't stop him. And he entered Prabhupada's tent. And devotees went after him. Prabhupada said, no, you wait outside. He was there for 20 minutes. And after 20 minutes he came out, he was a changed person. This young yoga siddhi guy with a lot of siddhis, he changed person. And so when he came out, he fell at the devotee's feet. He asked for forgiveness. He said, in my life I've seen great yoga siddhis with great powers, with great siddhis, but I've never seen anyone who has more siddhis than you, Guru. So what happened in that pandal, no one knows. But that's Prabhupada for us. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. So I'm sorry, 6 o'clock. We have to finish. There are many other qualities we want to discuss. Please read. Krishna is unlimited. Here he only talks about himself for 8 qualities. In the 10th chapter, Vibhuti Yoga, he will give more of his qualities. And in the 11th chapter, he will show his greatest Virat group. So that's for us to read, understand, and practice that in our life. But remember, we can only fool ourselves. Hare Krishna. Is there any corrections, any questions or discussions? Okay, thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.